There we go. That's okay. Everybody's going to get the slides. I feel like the mindset that we are working to build of being community servants as opposed to institutional servants can be one of the hardest ones. It for myself included as someone at the state library, so often we want to say, these are the things that we have, these are the things that we can provide, these are the things that we can give to you to help you, these are the things that we bought, databases, products, do you want them? And that's sort of centering the institution and what the institution has, as opposed to centering what the community needs, which might be something that we have, which might not be something that we have, which might not be a tangible thing at all. It could be something completely different. Number 2, as public servant library staff, we must focus on solutions and not problems. Now, in particular, when everyone seems to have remembered that libraries are a thing and everyone has opinions on them, it can be really hard not to doom spiral, as I call it, into why something isn't working, why something can't be done. There's not enough staff, there's not enough attendance. We tried that 2 years ago, nobody came to it. It can be really easy to kind of spiral into thinking about problems, especially because I think so many of us as library folks just want to do good things. And when those good things don't work out, it can be really distressing. I think understandably so. So focusing on solutions and not problems. That does not mean that the problems aren't real, but kind of sitting in that negative mental space really isn't going to fix a whole lot. Acknowledging it and working through it for sure, but kind of sitting and staying there, not super helpful. Number 3, social justice and liberations require equity-based solutions. Now, with regards to equity-based solutions and an equity mindset, not every library is ready for it. Not every library has time to prioritize identifying and really sticking to equity-based solutions, and that's fine. If a library is not in the space to do that, then the library is not in the space to do that. But for those of us who are, we hope that the Beebs initiative can sort of help each library find a path towards identifying equity-based solutions for their community with regards to summer services. And we hope that that branches beyond summer to the other, 9 months in the year. Number 4, libraries are a part of the community ecosystem, and that ecosystem includes systemically marginalized youth, families, and adults. Lately, over the last couple of years, equity and social justice and equality has been in the library world a lot with regards to making statements or pledges, even things like sort of getting rid of fines and things like that. Equity conversations and sort of placing the needs of marginalized community members in the forefront of the mind has been a talking point for a really long time, but more so within the last couple of years. And so we hope that this program can help some folks do some of the mental work that it takes to find solutions that are appropriate for their community, their staff, and their capacity. Number 5, it is imperative that systemically marginalized youth, families, and adults have opportunity to bring their unique lived experience to the design and implementation of community-based services. It's great, I think, when institutions or really any type of thing or person wants to do something for a person or for a group of people. But for anyone who's sort of gone through any community-based trainings or community-based workshop, there's a vast difference when the community member is invited into the organization space to build something for them that they're going to understand in a way that some of us won't. As someone who's able-bodied, there's a lot that I don't understand about the lived experience of someone who has a type of disability. And I can do all of the research and watch all of the webinars in the world and try to build something for that piece of my community, but it's going to have a higher impact and it's going to function better at the end of the day if any working or programming or anything that I try to put together is done in conjunction with this group and with this organization instead of on their behalf, because it's not my lived experience. So there's that. And finally, the only way to build and encourage strong and vibrant communities is through a foundation of equity. And that's just kind of how it is. We talk about when we do workshops or watch trainings on things like universal design. Are ramps and elevators helpful for certain members of certain disability communities? Absolutely. Is it helpful to literally anyone and everyone at any given moment of the day? Yes. My college library was 5 floors. Can I walk up 5 floors? Yes. Do I want to walk up 5 floors? No. Us with our book carts. Can we carry our book carts up 5 floors? I don't know. Do we want to? Absolutely not. And that sort of equity lens and equity mindset is for all things and all people in all cases. Oh, goodness. There we go. So the history of Beebs. Where'd this come from? What's this all about? This is going to be particularly complicated for us in Connecticut, unlike some of these other states, because there's a lot of CSLs and a lot of CLAs, and very rarely are we talking about Connecticut. In this context, we're often talking about California. But in the summer of 2020, the California State Library, also CSO, and the California Library Association, also CLA, made a commitment to work with library staff across the state to learn the why, how, and what of equity-based summers. And I've actually been following what California has been doing with their summer services since I started working here in 2019 and have been gobsmacked and incredibly impressed this entire time. CSL and CLA knew that in order to serve communities successfully, libraries have to re-envision summer services. So to move beyond the traditional activities that focus on those who already visit the library on a regular basis and move into working with community members and organizations to co-design, which is a process by which people design with each other instead of for each other. Services that brought to the forefront is probably what that should be, the assets and challenges of systemically marginalized communities. So here we are again, talking about doing something with our community instead of for our community, and the possible impact that something like that can have. But that's where everything that we're going to be doing has all grown from. This initiative that the California State Library and the California Library Association took to better their summer program and how it serves their entire community. So then it went national. Through funding from the IMLS, the Institute of Museum and Library Services, Beebs is moving beyond California, or I guess has moved beyond California. So the pilot year was from 2022 to 2023, and that included us in Connecticut, Idaho, Maryland, Ohio, Rhode Island, and Washington, which is really nice. We've got the coast, we've got the middle, we've got different backgrounds with regards to each of these states. So it's actually made for a really interesting pilot project. So the agencies worked with a minimum of 5 libraries in each state through the equity-based summers initiative and co-design. So a total of 33 libraries were trained and 85 staff members. There are actually some states who did more than 5. Idaho did 7 libraries and actually built Beebs into another project that they had going on. It was actually really fascinating to watch and sort of compare what they were doing and how they were doing it with the rest of us. So over the next several years, we're going to expand to 10 more states over year 2 and 3, which is going to equal a total of 17 states, including California, who will work with a minimum of 80 libraries. But like I said, we already know that that number is going to be bigger. Idaho did more than 5. Maybe Rhode Island did more than 5. It all kind of blends at this point. So what makes Beebs different from something else? So, and I think this is unfortunately gonna be the hardest part of this. It's sort of what we've noticed as we, as youth consultants, have worked with our frontline libraries, is it focuses more on systems and structures and not programs. And that mindset shift has not been easy for some folks. Some run with it. Others have struggled a bit. But unfortunately, Beebs is not going to be something where we can kind of hand out a Google folder of the things to do to build an equity-based summer program. Just doesn't exist. It's something that's going to focus more on systems and structures. The change is not going to be overnight, and it shouldn't be. We need to remember that when doing programs like this and sort of venturing out on these initiatives, we're trying to undo hundreds of years of inequity. There are people who are still alive from marginalized backgrounds who remember when they were not allowed to go into public libraries. It's like sort of like a dark past that I think makes many folks feel a little bit uncomfortable, but there are plenty of folks kicking around who remember not being able to use their public library the same way as others. So we're undoing a lot of damage, and that can't be honestly and authentically undone in like a season. It just doesn't work that way. Also, Beebs is strength-based, and that's why everyone's Beeb initiative is going to look a little differently, because the strengths of institutions and staff members are going to vary library to library. And Beebs has a recognition that each community and neighborhood is different. No one size fits all in summer equity work, which is just a nicer way of saying what I said. It's going to look different for every one of our libraries in Connecticut, as well as every other state, and kind of how this is all working for them. So year one, what did it look like? In our fall session of 2022, we did 4 co-design sessions with our pilot libraries. In Connecticut, we had 5 libraries that were a part of this initiative. We had an introduction session in January. We had session 1 in February, session 2 in March, session 3 in April, and session 4 in May. We knew that at the end, we sort of knew that year one, whatever brain spark, sort of whatever ideas may or may not have come to folks as they were going through the year one session, we knew that the odds of them being able to implement any of that into this past summer, the summer that we're just walking out of, was like slim to none. We all know that a lot of the summer thoughts start around February, which is one of the reasons why we're hoping to start year 2 a little bit earlier, so that maybe there's a higher likelihood that folks who want to make some changes to their traditional summer programming are able to do that in summer of 2024. But at the end of the day, we'll see. So in year 1, we designed, customized, and had an iteration of facilitation material. This is all the material that helps us, the state consultants as facilitators, assist our frontline libraries. We recruited and selected library staff to participate in Beebs. We, as the pilot cohort, the pilot states, decided that applications would be better than selection. Again, we recognize that everyone's capacity is different. We recognize that there are some libraries that just aren't ready. They're just not ready to do this because there's something else going on that, you know, has to take precedent. Maybe something foundational, or maybe they have no library director, whatever it might be. We really wanted people who participated in year 1 to be people who wanted to do it, the people who knew that they would have time, and the people who would purposely prioritize equity work and changes with regards to summer. So that's kind of why we're doing the application process, if anyone was wondering. Winter and spring of 2023, we did our facilitation. We also have monthly community of practices with pilot states. So what that means is that we actually have a monthly meeting, I think it's an hour and a half, I can't remember, where we invite every library from all of the states to come together to sort of have a meeting around a different topic that day. We thought that there would be some benefit to that because in our state in particular, like, many of you probably recognize the names of other people in this meeting here right now. We might be aware of what's happening at the library a couple towns over because this is a small state and it probably only takes you 20 minutes to get there. But it's really interesting to hear what folks are doing in Washington or Idaho, or Maryland is always doing awesome stuff that I'm stealing, or right next door in Rhode Island. We thought that the community of practice would really open up the mind and the ideas of ways and things that could be implemented in other communities if folks, as you know, if the librarians thought that it was appropriate for their community, or just to learn from each other and kind of just have someone else, another group of people to talk to who've all gone through similar training. Ongoing reflection, we've got a person who gathers all the data for all of this and puts everything together and reports out often and sort of checks back in on occasion to gather information. I actually have written a report for the year one post-session Connecticut folks that folks are welcome to go through and read to see how year one felt about BEEBS, as well as the entire pilot cohort. There's a report for the impact it had on everybody. And we also launched a BEEBS workbook, which is absolutely amazing in my humble opinion. So a bit of insight from the evaluations. This is the entire cohort report. That's what this information was from. And one of the things that folks were really adamant about was that the co-design works at multiple levels. For my Connecticut's BEEBS initiative, I felt we were really lucky to have directors participate as well as frontline staff. Anyone who's looked at the application knows that we're looking for decision makers to be a part of the BEEBS initiative if possible, because we know that so much change requires on the support of administration, be that directors, assistant directors, or department heads. So that was really great. I'm glad we had that. While there is general agreement about library intentions for equity-centered work, evidence of existing work and practice is reported by about half of the libraries, which is really great to see. Some of the things that we're going to be going through with the BEEBS co-design, folks are going to be able to build upon what they've already started doing. For example, something like the the amount of libraries who are going fine-free. There might be some way to tie that into your summer programming or something else that a library has going on. I recently had a library who's gone through some of our GELS workshops reach out because they want to instill policy into their library to allow people who are transgender in their community to put their preferred names in their library card account, their library record, even if they haven't gone through with the official legal name change process. Something like that. You have no idea how that might affect somebody who's sort of fighting the bureaucracy of paperwork with the country. But to know that their local public library says, hey, whatever name you're more comfortable going by, that's a name that we're going to put in our system, and that's a name that we're going to attach to your library card, and that's the name that you're going to be called while you're here. So there are things that are happening in your libraries already that we hope to expand upon with this training. That email I got was last week, and it's nice to know, and it's nice to see how libraries are, not only just sort of going through these trainings, but then finding, even if it's just one thing a year, to sort of change within their community to make it a more equitable institution. Across states and participants, there is growing recognition that summer services are a lever for change. And I think anyone who's gone through a summer program can see how that's true. And just so everyone knows, I'm going to upload these slides to the GELS LibGuide page, so you can read all these other little words later. So what is year two going to look like? We have added additional states. I can't remember which ones they are. I know Montana's coming, which is great because I'm a big fan of the youth consultant there, and I'm looking forward to stealing from her. But I believe we're adding 4 or 5 other states to year two. So they'll be finding at a minimum of 5 libraries to go through the BEEBS initiative as well. So we're going to be recruiting and selecting libraries to participate in the fall BEEBS session. The dates for the fall BEEBS sessions will be selected at a convenient time for all 5 participating libraries. And if all 5 participating libraries complete all of the BEEBS sessions, each library will be awarded $500 directly from IMLS to your library. The state library isn't really touching any of that money. And that $500 can be used in any way that that extends equity initiatives within your library programming. And that could be anything. That could be bringing in a trainer for an all staff training day. That could be whatever it is you want it to be. The only string is that the money has to go towards providing more equitable summer services for your library. Participating in Beebs learning and discussion sessions. We say start September 2023, but that's really when all of us are kind of starting the facilitation and the recruiting for our libraries because everyone's been doing summer. Be a partner in evaluation by providing feedback and insight through conversation and surveys. So we, as the IMLS cohort, only know what we're told. We can only make changes if folks are sort of honest with their thoughts about the initiative. We have pivoted quite a bit based off of what we saw in year one. You might have noticed that I said in year one there were 4 sessions, and anyone who sort of looked at any of the advertisement for year 2 knows that there's going to be 8. And that is a change that came from things that we saw in year 1. So we can only change what we know. And, there are going to be occasional opportunities for feedback and insight throughout year 2. And then after that, during the community of practice sessions. Speaking of community of practice, join the National Community of Practice at the end of the learning sessions. And that's an opportunity where you'll be able to have conversation with other libraries across the country who participated in Beebs. So what is the agenda for the Beebs co-design? So the overarching topics are going to be the why of summer services and the why of equity in summer services, letting go of tradition. It's been really interesting to sit through that every time. Connecting with community voice and summer service impact. What does success look like? Those are the 4 points of the star of ultimately what the Beebs co-design is. And speaking of the first one, the why of summer services, now is the time where I'm going to stop screen sharing because there's only so many things you can do at a time, even with 2 screens. So we are going to just quickly walk through a model of what an activity within Beebs is going to look like. And one of the reasons that I wanted to share something like this with you all is because Beebs is very participatory. When sort of COVID started to let up a bit, is sort of the only way that I can say it. There was a lot of talk about, going back to in-person meetings and seeing and talking to other librarians and learning from others the way that we did before March of 2020. And, we heard quite a bit that some of the best parts of being in meetings were sort of talking to others and learning from others. And for the Beeb sessions, can I sit and talk? Yes. You're all watching me do it now. I like to think I do a very good job of it. But we have heard from so many librarians that some of the greatest impact is when they learn from each other. So Beebs is incredibly participatory. Lots of breakout sessions, lots of chitter chatting, all that jazz. So I've dropped in the chat a link to a Jamboard. Just real quickly, in case anyone has never used a Jamboard before, I'm so sorry. I think Jamboard is so great. So the way it works is that I have set up 4 screens. They all have the same question on them. What are your summer service whys? I set up 4 because I wasn't sure how many people we'd have here, but I knew that we would have at least 4 breakout rooms. What we're going to have you do is in small groups, you're all going to talk about what are your summer service whys? Why do you do summer? Could be anything. You're going to grab a Post-it, a little sticky note, which you'll see over here right under the mouse. And you're going to type, because I want one. I hope that's not true. Well, it could be your answer. And you're going to hit save. And then your sticky is going to make its way onto the board. You can move it. most of the times all the stickies populate in one spot before you move it. So you're going to want to move it for sure. You can edit, you can delete. It's okay if more than one person puts the same Y, either in the same exact words or something familiar on the board. That's okay. The way we're going to do it is your breakout room number is going to correspond to your Jamboard page. So if you're in group 1, you're going to be here on page 104. If you're in group 2, 204. 3, 304, and so on and so forth. I'm gonna look at the time. We'll give folks 15-ish minutes, 10-ish minutes to do this. Feel free to, converse with each other as you go about this. Let's see how many people are in this room. So we're gonna do 3 rooms. So no one should need to be in 4. And it's gonna just kind of throw you in places automatically. We're gonna set that for 10 minutes. After your 10 minutes are up, you're gonna get a notification that the room is gonna close. You'll have 60 minutes to kind of finish your last thoughts and your last Post-its. And then we're gonna kind of go through these. We're gonna do what we like to call a gallery walk, which is kind of just when we look at all the Post-its on the different pages. What common themes do we see? And we're gonna talk through some of them. And that's just gonna be a small sample of what the Beebs initiative is going to look like. Does that make sense to everybody? Simple. All right, cool. So I'm going to open up the rooms and go forth and post it.
Something that I thought was interesting is that it's so far beyond just the challenge model. It's not just the read the thing and get the thing. Like there's a much broader understanding of what summer service is. It's not just read the thing and get the prize. It's be present, be safe, explore and learn, I think are things that I'm seeing as far as themes. I love that there were the other jam boards are a little we were group 1 and the other jam boards are a little more color coded and organized, which I'm also appreciating. So kudos to the aesthetics.
There can be beauty in a little bit of chaos. Does anyone, so just sort of, and thank you, Jen. I think that's a really lovely way of saying that. I think we are, as an institution, moving beyond read 5 books and get a Slinky, much as I still love a Slinky. I had one, I lost it, I got to find it. They make great fidgets. I'm seeing a lot here, and I'm wondering, who do you all think that, who's being served by these programs, either thinking of what you're seeing on some of these Post-its or even when you're running your own programs? Who are we serving with sort of these goals, with these whys that we have for summer? And the answer might be everybody. I don't know. I'm just sort of wondering what your thoughts are.
Well, Jen brought this up in our meeting, which for me, it's the same families who would come to the library anyway.
Yeah, that was not always, but majority, yes.
Yeah. I'm beginning to get some summer reports, and we are seeing that they're the families you see every all the time anyway. Where I'm also beginning to see a really interesting trend of like new people to the community who are looking for somewhere to go, and sort of the default is the library. So that's actually also nice to see. I wonder, sort of with the reading aspect of summer reading, right? The tracking minutes, pages, blah, blah, blah. Do we think that it's people who are already readers who are doing that? Or are we structuring our summer programs so that someone who's dyslexic and reading is hard for them, is also kind of participating, or sort of, or maybe those students we have who maybe don't read as well in English as they speak in English, if that's not the primary language spoken at home, sort of pivoting a little bit to that equity aspect. Do we think that the way that we're running our summer programs, be they summer reading programs, summer adventure, we're kind of starting to see some of that? Is that happening?
I'll keep talking. Someone else can interrupt me, but I'll talk. for me, I have pushed more towards that. There are a lot of those reluctant readers who are encouraged by the reward system. And since I've started, I've never been a fan of like logging books. We've gone to minutes to make it a little more equitable. And this year we took a step further, which was if you read during that day, you got credit kind of thing. So trying to create a level playing field when it comes to time versus amount and skill.
No, that makes perfect sense. Whether someone reads 4 chapters in an hour or 4 pages, I think switching the mindset to a way to make that more equitable so that each student feels like they've done the same amount of work regardless of what all was absorbed during that time, I think is a great mindset.
We offer some different, we do like a paper reading log where they can track minutes. Cause again, yeah, I agree. I think that's much more of a level playing field than any of the other kind of tracking. We do like a game board that's more activity literacy adjacent stuff. And then, we do tons and tons of activities and programming. So a lot of people do all 3. Some kids really like the game board thing. Some kids, which, will be like drawing or responding to something they've read or writing a letter to somebody or something literacy-ish. And then some kids, love the reading log and do that, or don't love reading, but they love the reading log, so they do it, that kind of thing. So we try. I'm sure there's lots of other things that we could be doing to reach kids who aren't, just naturally like the biggest readers.
I absolutely agree. So we're going to move on, but that is the smallest, most minuscule example of what these sessions are going to look like. It's going to be some reading, going through some things, sort of coming up with these multi-layered questions and thought prompts, as well as encouraging folks to go back to their library and have conversations with, other people from their department or maybe even other departments. Some of the things I saw on the Jamboard, we're offering things for everyone to do, which includes adults. But, we know that there aren't as much adult summer programs as others. And maybe that might have to be structured a little bit different because like maybe a 35-year-old doesn't want to do the same thing as a 5-year-old, or maybe they do. Right. So that's just like a very, very small example of some of the thought processes we're going to be going through. And I caught the chats on these as well from Zoe in New London tracks minutes, or we tracked how many days that children were reading rather than the time spent reading or the amount. Building habits right before that synaptic pruning happens in their teen years is absolutely lovely. So to move on to my favorite, or what, in my opinion, what I think has the potential to be the most impactful part of this initiative overall, or the quality principles and indicators. One of the things when sort of we were beginning to put together this to submit to the IMLS that we realized was that there's not a lot out in the world with regards to summer programming and fulfilling summer need for like librarians as there might be for parents or caretakers or teachers, right? A lot of the caretakers know the 15-minute rule and the 5-finger rule and a lot of things that like we as librarians, we aren't really set up to do. We're not really set up to sort of do one-on-one teaching and things like that. And, we kind of realized like, where are the metrics to help guide us as librarians when building these summer programs? Do they exist? They do now. We made them. So the quality principles and indicators, there are 4. So principles are meant to guide libraries in developing a quality summer program, and the indicators are the signposts or checkpoints to help staff determine whether their programs are achieving the quality principles. Also known as QP&Is, that's what we call them. So some of these are the quality principles. There are 4 of them. Summer services are designed and implemented with community voice. some of the things that we're talking about, right? Building with the community instead of building for the community, as well as some indicators that you all are going to be welcome to read. Because like I said, I already have the slides up on the page. They're just kind of hidden. Summer service library decision-making processes are embedded in an equity-based community mindset. And that's, again, like some of the things we were talking about. What might exist in our summer programming that's inequitable? Are we still counting books read? Are we still giving things out once, a child has read 5 books or 10 books or 15 books? Are we thinking about children who are blind or low vision, and maybe it takes them longer to get through books if they're, reading with screen magnifiers at home, or kids who don't read as well primarily in English and their local library doesn't have a lot offered in the language that they prefer to read in, right? Just like centering everything we do in that mindset of equity for our community. Summer services expand opportunities for learning and connection. And I think both of those are really important, the learning portion and the connection portion. I was really excited when I saw in some of those post-its that there are summer whys because it's fun, because it can be, right? Like it doesn't have to be more homework over the summer. I have to do this to get that because my guardians that I had to, because that's the library thing, right? Like sometimes it can just be for students to meet each other who maybe otherwise wouldn't. In my town, there are 6 elementary schools, and the public library is really one of the only spaces where anyone from those 6 schools can sort of gather in a different space and meet each other and learn from each other and connect and build community with each other. And our last one is summer services actively engage systemically marginalized youth, families, and communities. Again, coming from an equity mindset, but also especially for folks who are newer to the country, it can be isolating, especially if you wind up in a town where there aren't a lot of other people from your background that are around, where it can be kind of hard to find community. Being a teen or a youth is hard enough. Being a teen or a youth from a marginalized background is just like another layer of scaffolding on top of a time period where it's like kind of hard to exist already. So really building summer services and summer programming with that in mind, I think is going to have a benefit to those members of our communities in the long run. Because again, unfortunately, you don't see that change at the drop of a hat. So essential elements of this work, like I said, it's ongoing and it takes time. We like built it into the presentation over and over again. It's something that you can't do alone, which is why we ask for at least 2 people to participate. We don't want there to be one person kind of shouting to the rooftops for change in their library by themselves. But also what I want us to remember, particularly here in Connecticut, is that we are a small enough state that it's really easy for us to work with our neighbors, right? I'm here in West Haven, and if I like throw a rock hard enough, I'll hit a New Haven library, like one of them. If I drive an extra 10 minutes, I'm waving at Case Memorial in Orange. We are at a benefit that our partners in California and like Idaho are in Washington State do not have. So I really hope that we can find a way to lean into that. A lot of this work, a lot of these co-designs, I'm here to guide folks through as a facilitator, but we might not be able to give exact answers to very specific situations that happen like every Tuesday. So a lot of work is going to have to go into this, which again is why we're asking for folks to like apply, people who are ready for that. And also, we like to encourage a brave space. We're kind of migrating away from safe space because what's safe for one person might not be safe for another. But as we go through these sessions, and the other 4 sessions I didn't even say, I'm sorry, are the quality principle indicator sessions. So we'll have one session where we're going over one quality principle and its indicators, and then a session where we go over like the why of summer. That's why there are 8 sessions instead of 4. We found that we weren't giving the quality principles and indicators nearly the amount of attention that they deserved, when really they might be the stronghold behind building a really great summer program. But a brave space, maybe saying something out loud about, what your library isn't necessarily doing, even though you really want to, or about a big change that you think might need to happen for your summer library, even though it's kind of scary to think about. And also, though, this work is messy. It's messy. It's awkward. It's hard there might be some longstanding traditions that we need to undo, and that's never easy. You all have my contact information. I will be linking the Beebs YouTube and FAQs to our Beebs LibGuides page. And I know we're right at 2:01. I don't know how that happened so fast, but if anyone has any questions about what this might look like, just any questions at all, feel free to let me know. If you have to skedaddle for another meeting, feel free to send me your question in an email and I will respond forthwith. And yeah, these captions are awesome. No, this isn't Teams. Zoom has learned a lot over the last 3 years. But yeah, if there are any questions or comments or thoughts, please send them my way.
I have a quick question about the makeup of the team. We're pretty small, and taking both of my youth services members out for a single training session, is it possible for us to put the 3 of us in there and then we could tag team who are the 2 that go? Because I feel like that's a really great way to to be able to, okay, cool.
Yes, absolutely. Especially for our small libraries. We're really lucky that IMLS has given us a lot of flexibility to kind of arrange this in whatever way sees fit. And maybe there's someone from, do you have adult services who might want to, whatever, maybe that might be something to start to think about adult services. But yes, if tag teaming is going to work best for your library and your schedule for the fall, that's absolutely something that we could work with. It's not a problem.
Okay.
And that goes for anybody else too.
Because are all of the meetings going to take place in the fall, or is it?
They're going to bleed into winter. So what we do is once we have the 5 libraries, I send out the world's biggest doodle poll, and whatever we can do wherever it can fit, so that we can have all of our folks participate. And we do also respect that sometimes someone gets sick, sometimes someone's kid is sick and they can't make the meet. We know that things happen. But basically just what we ask is that there's, if possible, at least one representative from your library at each meeting. If it can't be both people, if it can't be 3 people, and then we ask that you really do your part to find time within your library to sort of fill in the other folks on whatever it was that was discussed. And also that workbook has a lot of what we go through in the sessions in it as well. So that's actually a great thing, find an hour and everyone sort of sit down together if someone couldn't make it and go through some of the workbook activities. The flexibility is better with this program than some of the others I've worked in. Did anyone else have any other questions or comments? No? Okay. Thank you all for coming. I will send out, so it automatically, one of those surveys is going to show up in your inbox in, I believe, an hour. But I've gone ahead and dropped that in the chat for you now. I'm also going to drop in the chat the link to the Beebs LibGuides page. On that page, you'll find the deadline for the application, which is September 18th at 4 o'clock. Before I clock out at 4:30, I want to know everybody who wants to apply to be in this program. There will be a year 3. So, and the reason it's limited to 5 is because fiscally, in order to give everyone the 5, that's just kind of how that falls apart. But if for some reason we can't squeeze a library in this year, there is still next year. And who knows what's going to come after that. But the LibGuides page will give you a hyperlink to the Beebs website that we've built. It gives the breakdown to IMLS that we wrote out for phase 1 in year 1, and the post-survey report for Connecticut and for the IMLS cohort if you're interested in some of the facts and figures of how this worked for some of the other libraries. The application is there as well. If anyone has any questions about it or any concerns, send me an email. Please don't call me. I'm only in the office 2 days a week and I'm not great at checking my voicemail. But you can call me, but I'm just gonna let you know I'm working on it. But I'm not great at I haven't checked my voicemail today. But thank you all for making time to be here. I'm here if you have any questions, and I hope to see some of your applications come in soon. Have a great rest of your day. Happy Tuesday.